What we are trying to do is to make Nigeria the refining hub of Africa, because African countries, all of them, they are importing products, and we want to make sure that whatever we consume. Late grandfather was one of the wealthiest Nigerian. The family name is Dantata. That's from my maternal side.
This is the richest black family in Nigeria, a private refinery the size of a small city. 650,000 barrels of crude processed every single day on the Lagos coast. A family office quietly opened in Dubai inside a building the family has owned for 17 years, and a Nigerian bloodline that has been the richest in West Africa since before the British finished drawing the borders of the country it operates in. This is not new money. This is not lottery wealth. This is not a single lucky decade. This is a dynasty that has been compounding for over 100 years, and the man currently sitting at the top of it just crossed $35 billion in personal net worth, making him the 65th richest human being on planet Earth. And, by a margin, no one is close to challenging the wealthiest black person alive. Welcome back to Black Pinnacle, where we go deep on the wealth, power, and legacy of the black community worldwide. Today, we are not telling you a celebrity story. We are walking you through the most consequential black industrial dynasty in modern history, the family whose holdings represent roughly 1/3 of the entire Nigerian stock exchange, whose refinery is rewriting global jet fuel supply chains in 2026, and whose succession plan now spans 3 continents. Subscribe and turn on notifications because the architecture of this empire is bigger than anything mainstream media has ever explained to you. This is the story of the Dangote family, the richest black family in Nigeria, the richest black family in Africa, and by every credible measure on record, the richest black family on the face of the planet. The origin. To understand Aliko Dangote, you have to understand Kano. Long before the oil refineries on the Lagos coast, long before the cement plants in Obajana, the family fortune began in the dust-red commercial heart of northern Nigeria, in a city that has been one of West Africa's most important trading hubs for more than 1,000 years. Aliko Mohammed Dangote was born in Kano on April 10, 1957, but the wealth he was born into was already 3 generations deep. His maternal great-grandfather was a man named Alhassan Dantata. Born in 1877 in the small Kano emirate town of Bebeji, Alhassan Dantata built one of the most consequential trading empires the continent had ever seen. He traded kola nuts out of Ghana. He exported groundnuts to Europe. He pioneered the use of steamships between Accra, Kumasi, Sekondi, and Lagos, at a time when most of his competitors were still moving goods by camel caravan. By the 1920s, he was the richest man in Kano. By the time he died in 1955, he was the wealthiest individual in all of West Africa. The detail that captures the scale of it is this. In 1929, when the Bank of British West Africa opened its first branch in Kano, Alhassan Dantata walked in as their first customer and deposited 20 camel-loads of silver coins. 20 camel-loads. The colonial bankers had never seen anything like it. That bloodline produced Dangote's mother, Maria Sanusi Dantata, herself a businesswoman and philanthropist. It produced his grandfather Sanusi, a commodities trader who effectively raised him after his father died when Aliko was just 8 years old. And it produced the family's deep, almost surgical understanding of how to convert trade into ownership and ownership into infrastructure. Aliko Dangote did not inherit money in the way Americans imagine inheritance. He inherited something more valuable. He inherited a blueprint. Even as a child, the signs were there. At 8 years old, Dangote was buying boxes of sweets with his pocket money, paying other children to sell them to classmates, and keeping the margin. That detail matters. While his peers were spending allowances, he was already building a tiny distribution network. The instinct was wired in from the beginning. He attended the Sheikh Ali Kumasi Madrasa for primary school. He completed his secondary education at Capital High School in Kano, and in 1977, at the age of 20, he graduated from Al-Azhar University in Cairo with a degree in business administration. He returned to Nigeria with that degree, a head full of trading instinct from the Dantata bloodline, and one phone call to make: the foundation. In 1977, Aliko Dangote went to his uncle, Sani Dantata, and asked for a loan. The amount was 500,000 naira. At the exchange rate of the time, that converted to roughly 3,000 United States dollars. That is the entire seed of the Dangote Group. $3,000 from an uncle. Today, the conglomerate that loan-funded employs over 30,000 people, generates revenue measured in the billions, and makes up roughly 1/3 of the market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. He started by trading commodities: sugar, salt, flour, rice. The boring, unglamorous staples that an exploding Nigerian population would need to consume every single day for the rest of their lives. While other ambitious Nigerians in the late 1970s were chasing the headline glamour of the oil boom, Aliko Dangote was building distribution networks for goods you could not stop buying even if you wanted to. Then came the cement decision. In the late 1970s, the Nigerian government authorized the importation of roughly 16 million metric tons of cement to fuel a national infrastructure push that historians now call the Nigerian Cement Armada. Dangote acquired an import license. He acquired a fleet of trucks. He built the logistics chain that moved the bags from port to building site. When other importers got caught in port congestion and demurrage fees, he had the trucking infrastructure to outmaneuver them. By 1981, he had formally incorporated what became the Dangote Group. For roughly 20 years, he ran one of the most successful trading and importing conglomerates on the continent. He could have stopped there. He could have lived very comfortably as one of the more prominent commodity traders in West Africa for the rest of his life. He did the opposite. He blew the whole model up. The rise. In 1996, Aliko Dangote got on a plane to Brazil. He went to study manufacturing. Specifically, he went to understand why the businessmen of Sao Paulo were so much wealthier than the traders of Lagos. The answer was structural. The Brazilians did not just buy and resell. They controlled the factories. They controlled the inputs. They controlled the prices. They controlled the supply chain, end to end. Dangote came back to Nigeria and made the single most consequential strategic pivot of his life. He decided the Dangote Group would stop being an importer of finished goods and start being a manufacturer of them. In 1999, construction began on a flour mill, a pasta factory, salt refineries, and sugar refineries. In the year 2000, he acquired the Benue Cement Company from the Nigerian government during a wave of privatizations. A few years later, he commissioned the Obajana cement plant, which became the largest cement facility in sub-Saharan Africa. The genius of the move was not just owning the factory. It was understanding that he could undercut every cement importer in Nigeria by producing locally at a fraction of the cost. He took the entire imported cement business and walked it off the field. By the early 2010s, Dangote Cement was the dominant cement producer not just in Nigeria but across the continent. Today, Dangote Cement operates with an annual production capacity of 55 million tons across more than 10 African countries. He holds 86% of the company. 86, not a minority stake, not a board seat with influence. Controlling ownership of the single largest cement producer on the African continent. Then came the announcement that changed everything. In 2013, Dangote announced he would build the largest oil refinery in Africa on a single site, on the Lekki coast just outside Lagos. Most observers thought it was impossible. The estimated build cost was around $14 billion. The construction timeline was years. The logistics of shipping in the largest single-train refinery columns in the world required dredging a private channel through the Atlantic. He did it anyway. The real estate and refinery empire. The Dangote Petroleum Refinery began operating in 2024. By February of 2026, it reached its full nameplate capacity of 650,000 barrels per day. To put that number in perspective, the entire daily oil consumption of Nigeria, a country of 220 million people, is comfortably covered by what this single facility now produces. The country that had spent decades exporting crude oil only to import refined gasoline back at premium prices for the first time in modern history, became a net exporter of finished petroleum products. The refinery alone is now valued by analysts between $40 billion and $50 billion, ahead of a planned Pan-African public listing in 2026. Dangote personally owns 92.3% of it. Do the math on that ownership stake at even the low end of the valuation, and you arrive at a single asset owned by one Nigerian man that is worth roughly $36.9 billion. Over the past 2 years, the Lekki refinery has exported 57 million barrels of jet fuel. European buyers, squeezed by the disruption of supply through the Strait of Hormuz, are now sourcing aviation fuel from the Nigerian coast. Every barrel that ships out of Lagos at premium international prices reinforces the valuation underneath the asset, which in turn reinforces the family's net worth in real time. The refinery does not sit alone. On the same Lekki industrial site, the family built a fertilizer plant capable of producing 2.8 million tons of urea every year, making it one of the largest fertilizer operations on the African continent. There is a power station. There is a private deep-water port. There is a private dredged channel through the Atlantic that the company controls. This is not real estate in the way Americans picture it. This is a vertically integrated industrial city, privately owned, sitting on the Lagos coast, generating dividends that flow back to a single family. Inside the city of Lagos itself, Dangote personally owns 6 residential and commercial properties. They are valued through standard capitalization methods using rental income data. But the more interesting detail is the Dubai property. The Dangote Group has owned its Dubai office for 17 years. In 2024, his middle daughter Halima relocated there to open a formal family office, the international wealth management arm of an empire that had outgrown a single continent. The business empire. The architecture of Dangote wealth is not a single company. It is a portfolio of monopolies and near monopolies stacked across the consumer staples that every Nigerian household needs to function. Dangote Cement, Africa's largest cement producer, 86% owned, recently announced for a partial listing on the London Stock Exchange. Dangote Sugar Refinery, one of the largest sugar refining operations on the continent. Nascon Allied Industries, Nigeria's dominant salt producer. Dangote Fertilizer, the continental leader in urea production, a meaningful stake in United Bank for Africa, one of the largest financial institutions on the continent. Closely held businesses operating in food, manufacturing, agriculture, packaging, and consumer goods, all valued through Dangote Group's audited financial statements. And at the apex, the refinery itself, sitting unlisted on the balance sheet at its construction cost, while analysts wait for the public market to revalue it at 4 to 5 times that number. This is what an empire actually looks like when you strip away the celebrity layer. It is not yachts and watches. It is 55 million tons of cement. It is 650,000 barrels per day. It is 2.8 million tons of urea. It is 20 million bags of salt and sugar moving through Nigerian shelves every quarter. This is generational wealth in its purest industrial form. Cement is not going out of style. People are not going to stop eating sugar. Salt has been a staple commodity for 10,000 years. Petroleum products will continue to fuel the African continent for at least another generation. Dangote did not bet on a trend. He bet on biology, infrastructure, and population growth. And on a continent projected to reach 2.5 billion people by 2050, that bet looks more correct every single year. The legacy play. If the empire was the only story, this would be a finance documentary. It is not. The Dangote family operates on a principle their patriarch named almost 2 centuries before, in Kano. Wealth is meaningless if it does not return to the community that made it possible. In 1994, Dangote formally incorporated the Dangote Foundation, renamed the Aliko Dangote Foundation in 2018. In March of 2014, he transferred an endowment of $1.25 billion into it. That single act made it the largest private foundation in Africa by an enormous margin. The foundation's primary focus is childhood malnutrition, a crisis that affects millions of children across Nigeria and West Africa. In partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Dangote co-committed a $100 million program to address malnutrition in Nigeria. In 2014, he donated 150 million naira to fight the Ebola outbreak. In 2016, he committed $10 million United States dollars in direct relief to families displaced by the Boko Haram insurgency in northeastern Nigeria, a donation that Africa News described as the single largest individual contribution to the crisis by any one person. In 2019, He donated an entire hostel complex to Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria, capable of housing 2,160 students. In 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic reached Nigeria, he committed 200 million naira to the national response and used his cement operations to construct emergency isolation centers in Lagos. The pattern is consistent. Wealth comes out of the cement plants, the sugar refineries, the petroleum operations, and a meaningful share of it flows directly back into Nigerian healthcare, Nigerian education, and Nigerian disaster relief. This is the principle that runs in the bloodline. The great-grandfather Alhassan Dantata slaughtered cattle every Eid for the poor of Kano, and he sponsored Hajj pilgrimages for Muslims who could not afford the journey to Mecca, a tradition the family still funds today, more than a century later. Old money builds foundations. The Dangotes built one of the largest on the continent, and then they handed the operating model to the next generation. The life now. In February of 2026, Aliko Dangote made an announcement that revealed what the next 20 years of the dynasty would look like. He appointed his 3 daughters to lead the major operations of the Dangote Industries empire. Halima Aliko Dangote, the middle daughter, was named Group Executive Director of the Dangote Family Office and International Offices, overseeing both the Dubai and London operations. She holds a bachelor's degree in marketing from American Intercontinental University in London and an MBA from Webster Business School. She started her career as an analyst at KPMG. She sits on the board of Dangote Cement. She served as board president of the Africa Center in New York. And she is now the architect of the family's international wealth strategy, running the Dubai office her father has held the lease on for 17 years. Maria, the eldest daughter, was named Executive Director of Operations at Dangote Sugar Refinery in 2023, putting one of the continent's largest sugar operations under her direct command. Fatima, formerly the Executive Director of Commercial at Nascon Allied Industries, was elevated to Group Executive Director of Commercial Operations at Dangote Industries Limited, overseeing the commercial spine of the entire group. This is what real succession looks like in a continental dynasty. Not a single inheritor, not a fight over the estate. 3 separate executives, each running a meaningful division of the empire, all reporting up to the patriarch, all coordinating through the Dubai family office that one of them personally runs. Aliko Dangote is 68 years old. He has been twice divorced. He lives in Lagos, where he wakes early, prays 5 times a day in the Muslim tradition, and reportedly still arrives at the Dangote Group office most mornings. He is not retiring in the public sense, but the operating model has clearly shifted. The patriarch is stepping back. The daughters are stepping forward. The Dubai office is opening. The London office is being formalized. The refinery is moving toward its public listing. The cement operation is preparing for its London Stock Exchange debut. By the year 2030, the family is publicly targeting an enterprise value of $100 billion across the combined group. At the current pace of refinery exports and continental cement demand, that target no longer reads as ambitious, it reads as conservative. The closing synthesis. Step back from the numbers for a moment and look at what this actually is. A Kano trader's great-grandson now owns the largest refinery on the African continent. A boy who sold sweets to his classmates at the age of 8 now controls 86% of the largest cement producer in sub-Saharan Africa. A loan of $3,000 from an uncle in 1977 became a $35 billion personal fortune, a 30,000-person employer, and a family office spanning Lagos, Dubai, and London. A philanthropic endowment of $1.25 billion now feeds and educates Nigerian children whose parents work in the same cement plants the patriarch built. This is not a celebrity profile. This is the blueprint for how Black industrial wealth gets built and held for 100 years. Trade, manufacture, vertically integrate, reinvest. Never sell the controlling stake. Keep the operating company close. Give the next generation the operating roles before they need them. And convert every $1 billion of personal wealth into a foundation that returns to the community that made the wealth possible. The Dangote dynasty is the loudest possible answer to a quiet question. Where is the Black equivalent of the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, the Waltons, It is sitting on the Lagos coast. It has been compounding since 1877, and in 2026 it is the richest black family on earth by a margin no one is close to challenging. This is what the move from icon to owner actually looks like. This is what the second act of cultural legacy is supposed to be. Not fame, not visibility, ownership of the cement, of the salt, of the sugar, of the refinery, of the deed, of the receipt, of the blueprint itself. The richest black family in Nigeria is not a story about how much money one man has. It is a story about what one bloodline did with 150 years of patience, discipline, and continental reinvestment. The dynasty did not get lucky. The dynasty got intentional. And the next generation, 3 daughters across 3 continents, is the proof that the wealth was structured to outlive its founder from the very beginning, which is exactly what generational wealth is supposed to do. Which part of the Dangote empire surprised you the most? Was it the refinery, the cement monopoly, the Dubai family office, or the daughters now running the operating divisions? Drop your answer in the comments. We read them. If this video added something to how you see black wealth, ownership, and legacy, subscribe and turn on notifications. We are profiling the wealthiest black families, athletes, and business empires the mainstream press refuses to cover with the depth they deserve. See you on the next video.